If there is one thing that has been consistent with Australian teams throughout generations, it's that they will often play a very hard brand of cricket on the field, and that includes not just in terms of their style of play, but also the verbal banter, the sledging that goes on can oftentimes be relentless. But the one thing that can be said about them is that they tend to leave things on the field. And this is a tradition that has carried on even into their most bitter cricket rivalry, the Ashes. It has been a tradition for a very long time now that, come what may, at the end of the series, whatever the result may be, the players will get together in the home dressing room, share a few drinks, and then go their separate ways. So it's a time-honored tradition, and one that does in fact, let's say, echo the spirit of whatever happens on the field stays on the field, and whilst there might be a rivalry on the field, it more often than not stays just there, even if that hasn't always been the case in recent memory. However, this recent Ashes series, well, it has been pretty fractious, even though it hasn't probably been as bad as what recent series have been, say, even 5 to 6 years ago. That being said, it still didn't stop the fact that there had to be some controversy coming out right after the test match finished, and this time it came from the fact that allegedly the Australian players were not actually allowed into the English dressing room for that customary sharing of a few drinks after the series. But what is the real story? Where does it stem from? And is it actually a case of sour grapes from the English players? Well, let's take a look, shall we? Well, it all really goes back to that second test match, which of course saw that infamous Johnny Bairstow stumping, which did end up leaving a rather bitter taste in the mouths of not just the English players, but the fans as well as their head coach. In fact, head coach Brendan McCullum, who has of course been credited for introducing this baseball style of play that has had a lot of people talking, flat out said after a point that I don't think we will be sharing a beer with the Australian team guys anytime soon. Now, he did, to his credit, actually end up walking back that statement towards the end of the Ashes, and in fact, he did confirm that yes, we will be sharing a beer with them. And not just that, I think some of the things that were said, or rather, let's just say that some of the things I said were taken out of context. So he did actually say that, I didn't really mean what it was I said. And well, that is as simple as that. It should be that simple. Unfortunately, it ended up kicking up a bit of a fuss because once the story broke, well, the Australian media ended up going into overdrive, and in fact, there was one particular source who told Fox News in Australia that, look, we've got the urn, we really don't care about this, but it does leave a bit of a weird taste, and you talk about the spirit of cricket. Spirit of cricket has been, of course, a very contentious debate throughout this particular Ashes, but were they really snubbed? Well, at least not according to England captain Ben Stokes, who ended up quote-tweeting a journalist and saying that, look, there were actually a lot of ceremonies that we had to do afterwards, and instead of having the usual drinks in the dressing room, we ended up doing it in a pub instead. So that's that, right? Easy as that, simple as that. Well, if only it ever was that simple. So where exactly does the truth lie in this particular matter? Well, it can be a little tough to judge, especially when you consider the fact that in today's day and age, everything is really stage managed to the point where more often than not, players want to actually put out the right image rather than necessarily talk about how it is they may feel, although that really hasn't been the case in this particular Ashes, because a lot of the times, whether it be the Australian players, and especially so if you're talking about the English players and in fact the English camp, they have been very unafraid to say what's on their mind, even if it has ended up making a lot of people feel that maybe their mindset on things needs a little bit of a refresh. However, in this case, it is fair to say that maybe, just maybe, it was a bit of both, in the sense that whilst the English team might have actually had a few, commitments after the match, and to be fair, a lot of it centered around the retirements of players like Moeen Ali, who you remember came back for this test series as a one-off, will be retiring, and of course, the rather surprised retirement of one Stuart Broad. You can't help but feel that this is something that could have been better communicated, because if stories are to be believed, the Australian players were actually waiting outside the dressing room and were wanting to be let in, but that didn't really happen. They ended up leaving, and it was only afterwards that the English team ended up reaching out, and then all of them went out together to that pub, as Stokes himself put it. So it does seem a little bit of a case of the English team were kind of having their cake and eating it too, but again, all of this is really speculation on our part. That being said, at this point, can you really blame us, especially when you consider how fractious things got in this particular Ashes, and despite all of that, how good the quality of cricket was that you ended up having a 2-all series where England came back from 2-0 down and actually very nearly won the series 3-2, and were it not for rain, probably could have been in that position. But that being said, post-Ashes, let's say, controversy or the fallout from this might be something that does leave just a little bit of a bitter taste in the mouth, and not the kind of bitter taste that you would get from a lager, but from something rather unsavory or unfortunate happening. At least that's my take and our take on it. What's yours? You can let us know that in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, tap the bell icon, leave us a comment, follow us on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook, and of course don't forget to download the SportsTak app. Plus, if you're already on the channel, go right ahead and check out some other videos that we've done. But for now, from my side, it is goodbye.